Hello, John here, and this is tutorial 27 of my tutorial series. Now, in the previous tutorials we were talking about how to create your own gravity engine, simple one, and I said that we would then try and incorporate that into a simple Lunar Lander stroke Jupiter Lander clone and try and make a simple game out of it. So in this tutorial I have tried to make some assets that we need for this Jupiter Lander type game, and that is a speed indicator from side to side, a speed indicator from falling or rising, and a fuel indicator to let you know how much fuel is. And what I've tried to do is I've tried not to use and cheat and use sprites, because especially when you get into more complex games, you need to use your sprites for much more important assets than just showing the user where the fuel limit is, or how fast they are going down, or whatever. So what I've done is I've created a sort of bar and gauges using the standard character set within the Commodore 64. So there's no predefined user graphics. These are all graphics that are inside the 64, and I mean, of course you could predefine your own graphics, and I suppose we could do this tutorial again with predefined graphics, but I thought it would be interesting to try and see if we can accommodate doing this without having to use memory defining graphics and stuff like that, because when you're building a game, you know, memory's in short supply. But I set myself this target, and I thought, okay, then let's see if we can do it. So what I've done is I've used the standard character set. So here we are. Let's go with this one. Here we are. So here's the standard character set, and what we're going to try and use, we're going to try and use these characters here. So we're going to try and use the single vertical line characters. Now there's 7 of those, and the single horizontal characters, and there's 7 of those. And you can see that, like here, you've got 69, 68, 67. That's the line going from the top to the middle, and then line 70 is near enough at the bottom. We've got 71 and 72, which are doing the side to sides. So those characters could be used for the gauges, and then for the bars we can use these characters here, where you can emulate a cell emptying or filling up depending on what you want to use. So we'd be using some of these characters here. So with that being said, here's the program that I've written, and someone's commenting on my YouTube channel. I've been YouTube bombed. Right, so I've created this simple demonstration program, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it first, because the only way to truly show you how it works is to run it, and then I can explain what I've been doing. So what I'm going to do is just quickly wind down and get the characters. So we're talking D and A, W and Z, I and M, and X for exit. Right, so I and M, that's going to be the fuel gauge. D and A, left and right, and A and Z up and down. Right, okay. Right, the only reason I'm familiarising myself is because I wrote this back in December. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it so you can see what it's doing, and then we'll go into how it's doing it in a minute. Right then, so we're going to clear screen. I can't remember what this is. I think it's shift and page up. No, shift and home. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this up. So it's at hex 9000. So we're going to run it. Here we go. Boom. Right. So this is the prototype program. So these are the characters I'm using to define the bar going along here, backwards and forwards. So this is our gauge, and there's going to be a single line there that's going to be moving that way and moving that way. And this set of characters is for a line going up and down this bar here. And this one is the fuel gauge, so this will slowly empty or fill up depending on which characters we use. So let me just try the bottom one down here. So we should, when I start it up, so that's going to be D and A. So if I press A, it should go to the left. There you go. And as I'm pressing it, it's moving over. And that is just basically replacing the character with the one out of one of these. And at the top here, you can see what number I'm using. Alright. So it'll change every now and then. So it's following, so I'm now pressing D, so it's going back to the right. And here you've got the vertical one. So this is going to be W and Z. So W is going to make it go up, so I'll press that. There you go. So it's going up and up and up and up and up. And Z is making it come back down again. And this one is the fuel gauge. So this is going to be I and M. So if I press M, that should decrease it down. There you go. And the only reason I'm using the characters is because what I'm doing is I've got a counter, and the characters are when I'm pressing the keys, just decreasing the counter, but then is then represented into this gauge. So if I now press I, it's going to fill up, and oh look, we've got a bug. So something needs to be sorted there. Yeah. But the whole point of this is I'm not going to be going up anyway. I'm going to be going down, because with the lander, we don't, unless we do something, we're going to be just using fuel on the way down and on the way down. But there's certainly a bug in there that needs to be fixed. Right. So this is how it's all been done. So I've got some watch values. I've got my key grabber, and then the screen locations. So I've got the screen location X, screen location Y, and then the gauge location. So I'm jumping to start. So these are the data points that I'm storing, and then I've got all the characters required to make the X bar work, all the characters required to make the Y bar work, and all the characters to make the Y gauge. And we know there's a problem with there, because when you go back up it doesn't fill up, so we need to look at that. And then I've got the screen offsets, and the screen offsets is just an array of bytes to determine the screen rolls. Yeah. And the reason for that is it's instead of having to take your number and then times it by 40, so if you have a number 3 and then you times it by 40, it means you've got to add 43 times. It's a lot easier just to go, right, I'm going to the third byte across, so that's 50, that's the low byte, and that one is the high byte. Now as you can see, these are noughts because it's an offset. You've got to remember it's an offset. So we start at 0400 for the screen, and then this is what we're going to add to it to give us the actual value. So start the program. I'm starting off with X and Y. I load the loops, and then store them on the screen so you could see, the user could see them. And then I do it with the Y characters. And then I've got some macros that initiates the Y bar, initiates the X bar, initiates another Y bar. Now they're macros, and they should be down here somewhere. There we go. So init bar. So we're passing in parameters, the start location, and how many times I want to do it. So let's do the first one. So I'm starting at 044E, and I'm doing it for 22 rows because it's the Y bar. So we run through it. So we load it up, and we load up 160, which is a solid square, and then store it in the position. Oh, that's the X bar. Where's the Y bar? Here we go. So we start again. So we store the. So we separate out the low and high for the screen start location. Store it in our screen location variables, and then we start filling with a solid square into that screen location. And then we add 40 to the screen location. We don't need to go to the array and do it, but we could if we wanted to. There's nothing wrong that says that, but because we're starting at a specific location and we're actually running through it anyways, might as well add, and rather than do a lookup to an array. But we could do it. Don't get me wrong, we could do it. And then it goes through for the number of times that we specify as a second parameter, and then jumps back out. And then the Y bar is the X bar is a bit easier. We've still got the start location and the iteration, but we're just using the X index as our loop counter, and we just store it, X. So they're the two routines and two macros that we use to create the bars. And then, so this main loop is basically me testing the keyboard and affecting the relevant data points. So for D, I'm increasing the X position. For A, I'm decreasing the X position. W, I'm increasing the Y position. Z, decreasing the Y position. And then I, increasing the Y value, decreasing the Y value. And then X is to jump out. So that is basically doing the main loop. So we build up the thing, and start the initialization of the bar, go through the main loop, and then when we've gone through the main loop, we show the bars. So we load the X position into the accumulator, and we say show X bar at that position with that value. So let's have a look for show X bar. Here we go. So the parameters are start screen location and the offset. And so what we do is we take the start position and the offset, and we add it to the accumulator. And the accumulator was the real value, the value that we want to use. And we add it, and then we push it to the stack. And this adds the center offset to the value, yeah? And then we store it away, and then we divide it by 8, and then we compare it with the X index position, and that is the position of the value before. If it's equal, then it means that the position was the same, and then we push that to the stack and store it away. Then we load the X bar character, we OR it with 80, so basically we reverse it, and then we store it into the last position. And that means basically what we're doing is we're storing it back over if we're moving it one, we need to put the original the original character that was there before we determine what the new character is. So that's what we do. Then we pull it back, what we stored away in X index position, store it in X index position, store it in 0401. That's a temporary location that I stored it in, and then we add the first, which is the screen location, to the offset. Then we pull back our value that we stored away, and it with 07 because in the array we've only got the 7 bytes, and we want to make sure we don't have any more. So we just do an AND with 07, transfer it to Y, increase Y because of the 0 issue. We store that in 0400, which is the temporary location on the screen, the two top corners. We load the character from the X bar array, or it with 128, so we reverse it, because I don't want to show an empty bar with a line moving across. I want to show a full bar with a line going past. Load Y, and then with 0, and then store the character we just load from the array into the screen location, comma Y. And that's it. And that allows us to put the line on the screen and move it backwards and forwards using this routine. And so basically it knows what it was there before, replaces it with a full character, and then evaluates what the next character will be to represent the value, and then stores that on there. So if we go back here so that's the X bar, and the Y bar is just the same. So if I go to Y bar, which is down here, and it's exactly the same, but instead of doing it across that way, we're doing it that way. So it's loading the Y characters, storing in the screen location, and carries on. So it's exactly the same. Alright, so and the next I think is the gauge. Yep, Y gauge, and this is exactly the same there. So it's exactly the same. The only difference is I'm not replacing the character back on the screen because excuse me, because I don't want to replace a solid square in it, because in the gauge we're going to empty it, and that's where I think that's where the bug is, because we're not replacing it with a solid square. So when it moves to the character above, we're just leaving it as it is, as a blank space. But because we're using it as a decreaser, we don't we don't replace it with a full square and then work out the next character. We just leave it as a blank character, and then evaluate the next character along the line. So that's how we work out the gauges. And so coming back up here, we do the gauge, and then it does the main loop again. So it's a very simple concept. So we just tell it where the start of the bar is, start location, and how deep we want it for the Y bar. Same with the X bar, start location, but how many times across do we want it? And then, I mean, this is the X center bar and show bar. The X center bar is where we're going to if the line starts in the middle instead of the top or the bottom or the front and the back. So and that's exactly the same. All we're doing is we're working out a middle negative value. So if it's a negative value, we need to just work on it slightly different. because excuse me, because with a negative value, when we have a -1 or -2 or -3 in binary, that's 255, 255, 254, 253 in 2's complement. So we have to do a little bit of different mathematics, and so that's why we test for a negative value, because if it's a negative value we do something else to it, and the most obvious thing is we knot it. So we make it not a negative value, make it a positive value, but then we're working in reverse when we put the character on the screen. If it's a positive one, if you notice, we don't do an EO EXO. We just basically work out what the character is before, place what the character was there before, work out what the new character is, and then carry on. But in the negative one, we knot it first before we work out, place the character that was there before and the new one. And getting the new character will be different in the negative, because we have to work backwards instead of forwards. So we always have to work backwards, and that's why the array looker is in a different place. So I'll put this on GitHub, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these gauges, right, to shift pull. There we go. So this was 496 9. So I'm going to use these gauges to show the user if they're too high or too low on the screen. And what I'm going to do is we're going to have a highlighted bit where they must be in when they land, and as they are applying thrust to the spacecraft to slow them down, this bar is going to be coming down and coming down and coming down. And one extra thing I was going to do was try and make it go red when they get into the danger zone of running out of fuel. And so that'll be the next video, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement I'm going to create myself a little spaceship. I think one of the compute magazines that I've got has got the code for a simple spaceship, or even I could use a spaceship out of that Melbourne House games book that we've been playing with, and then try and implement the physics engine, the gravity engine in it. And I think that's the next video that I'll be doing, to bring together some of the aspects of the game to see if we can get it to do it in a simple form, and then apply more stuff apply more features to the game to make it a bit more playable and a bit more usable, I suppose, to do that, and keep these tutorials going. So the current tutorial stream will be around creating a sort of simple lunar lander game, and just to try to get you, because I'm more of an application developer rather than a games developer, so I'm doing this as to show you guys even what I'm learning as well. So with that being said, I will leave you for this video, and speak to you soon. Take care. Bye. I'd like to thank all the patrons that are contributing to my channel. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. Thank you very much.